Okay, folks, we're here today to interview Paul Campbell, who is involved with the planning, the planning on our golf and greenkeeping academy here at Caffrey. Paul, we had fields before on the site down there. Why planning for the new golf course that we have?
Yeah, although it sounds like converting fields back into fields, all developments of this type require planning consent as part of the national law legislation in relation to land use, and that's handled by the local authority planning departments administered on the auspice of the DOE Northern Ireland. And particularly, although we are developing a golf course here, this facility and most golf facilities require a building on the site, and therefore all planning applications and rules apply. Equally, in addition to the building, there is the likes of public access required. There will be details in terms of access, car parking, etc. So, whilst we think we're building a grassed area, we're actually building a public access facility, which requires planning permission.
Okay. And during the plan request, what sort of details did the planners require from yourselves?
The initial details required are the basics, the fundamentals you expect. Where is the site? Where is the site in relation to what we call notifiable neighbours, neighbours who will need to know what's going on their boundary or their perimeter. Following on from that, they then want to know what the site's currently used for, how we get onto the site, what's the dimensions, is it suitable for purpose. We know that we require something like 45 to 50 hectares for an 18-hole golf course. Anything smaller than that, and you'll have health and safety issues within the development of the golf course, which the planners want to highlight at the development stage. In this situation, we're developing a golf academy, so it's for training purposes really, so those sort of parameters didn't apply, but equally we need to know where stray golf balls may go, the footprint, the alignment, the topography. They have a remit to make sure that the topography of the development doesn't change significantly and look out with the natural landscape, surrounding landscape. We then need to know, or the planners need to know, size of the building, access, how many traffic movements will be in there to access on a daily basis, staff numbers, and then we get down to the real nitty-gritty about how drainage water, runoff water, sewage water is all going to be handled, and what the finished product is going to look like in terms of what trees, shrubs, planting plants, etc. we're going to use further down the line.
No problem, Paul. What drawings did the planners request?
The primary drawing is the layout plan, which is what we call the footprint drawing, which shows us the alignments of greens, tees, fairways, water hazards, tree planting, etc. Similar to what we have in the background here, where the holes, the fairways sit orientated to other holes and fairways, what gaps are between fairways, the pathway around, are we playing clockwise, anti-clockwise. So that's all handled on the footprint drawing, usually provided by the golf course architect or designer. In this case, David Jones, the golf course designer, provided our initial footprint drawing based on the existing topography. He's done a particularly good job in following the existing contours, using natural hazards on the golf course, as you would with Mackenzie's golf course design principles that we're going to study later. In addition to that, we need drainage plans, where the main pipes are going to run, where they're going to exit to, are we affecting other people's drainage systems as neighbours. And in addition to the drainage plans, irrigation plans, where the pipework for the irrigation is going to run to, an estimate of how much water we're going to use, because golf courses have a reputation we use a lot of water, where that water is going to come from, is it the groundwater, or are we taking it from rivers, and how that affects riparian rights, etc. Following on from the drainage and irrigation plans, they then ask for earthworks plans, section drawings, which show clearly how the levels of the finished product, which will give an indication of how visible those are from the surrounds by neighbours, and how they'll affect the overall landscape and general look of the finished product. So section plans are essential. Equally, section plans give an idea to the contractor who's eventually going to tend to the job, how much earthwork's involved, what sort of plant he'll require to build the golf course. Planting plans then, the planners want to know what areas will be fairway, what will be semi-rough, what will be semi-natural grassland, wildflower mix, where the trees are going, where shrubs are going, which affects, let's say, the view from the golf course outwards, and equally the view from the road inwards, or the vista, as the planners like to call it, what effect will have on that. So those plans have to be in place. And equally then, we need finished design plans in terms of how, they're more artist impressions rather than plans, how we envisage after 3 or 4 years of maturation, shrubs and trees have grown up, grasses well matured, fairways are well aligned, waterways and features have developed, how the finished product will look. Because that, at the end of the day, the planners want, when they come to a consultation, they want to give the general public an idea of what the finished product is going to look like.
No problem. Can you tell me as well then, Paul, who else was involved as well as the planners? Was there did they request anybody else? Or?
Two major consultations. One was the Rivers Agency, who, as I've previously discussed, they have concerns about the runoff from the site into natural waterways, and the runoff will come in the forms of fertiliser and pesticides when the golf course is being developed. But equally, during construction, you have the problem of silt runoff, where the natural soils are exposed, rainfall comes and silt is washed into the waterways. That affects the fish populations and particularly wildlife populations, and so they had to be consulted, and they have issues in relation to silt traps and how we control all that runoff. Equally then we had the Natural Heritage, and Natural Heritage are looking after features on the site that they don't really want disturbed or they want recorded. I'm speaking specifically about archaeological features, and in this case we had what was called a rath, which is an old stone fort construction, buried 3 to 4 feet below the existing topsoil. Their requirement there was simply to record during the construction project, to record what was exposed there during the construction works, expose that, photograph it, record it, and then integrate it back into the construction project. And for that purpose, an archaeologist was on site through the entire construction project. Those are the two main people involved.
Okay, Paul, thank you. And is there anything that was in the original request that the planners weren't favourable of, that they didn't like, possibly?
Yeah, one key feature was the fact that we have a driving range, a golf driving range for training purposes within the development. And to maximise our uses of that, obviously driving ranges tend to be used predominantly through the winter, and to get maximum value for that, we thought floodlighting would be an essential requirement. The planners had major issues in relation to floodlighting on two bases. Simple light pollution in the countryside, where we're trying to minimise the amount of not unnatural man-made light is exposed in the countryside, so we can look up and see the stars without interruption. So light pollution is always an issue. But equally, our proximity to the airport, there was the potential for confusion with landing lights, etc., because we're only, as the crow flies, less than half a mile from the airport. So floodlights has been ruled out of the development.
Okay, Paul. Thank you very much. Thank you.